A quiet bakery owner is forced into marriage to bury her mother's scandal. The groom, rumored dangerous, tattooed, and cold, pulls her close in a courthouse and whispers he's wanted her for years. Suddenly, the bargain that was meant to silence turns into a tender, impossible question. Is this love or a secret plan? Her mother will do anything to protect her reputation. A desperate man threatens to burn the bakery to the ground, and the whole town is watching. Can a woman who's always been told she's unworthy find the courage to choose herself, and the man who surprised her with tenderness? Or will the past steal everything she loves? Which will win? Safety, revenge, or a love whispered into a courtroom that could change both their lives forever? Lily's hands moved rhythmically through the soft dough as early morning sunlight streamed through Heaven's Hearth's front windows. The familiar scent of yeast and warm butter wrapped around her like a comforting hug, transporting her back to simpler times. She hummed quietly, a gentle tune her grandmother had taught her years ago, feeling the tension in her shoulders ease with each push and fold of the bread dough beneath her palms. The bakery was her sanctuary, a place where her soul could breathe freely away from judgment. "Morning, Lily," old Mr. Peterson called out as he pushed open the bakery door, the little bell chiming cheerfully above him. His weathered face crinkled with a smile that reached his kind eyes. "Smells amazing in here as always. Better than any fancy perfume if you ask me." Lily smiled warmly, though she felt the familiar urge to shrink behind the counter, a habit formed from years of being told to take up less space. "Good morning, Mr. Peterson. Your usual sourdough is just about ready. I added a touch more salt like you suggested last time." The elderly man beamed at being remembered, at being heard. It was these small connections that made Lily's work meaningful. As she wrapped his bread in crisp brown paper, carefully folding the corners just so, Lily caught a glimpse of herself in the polished display case. Her mother's words from last week's Sunday dinner echoed in her head. "Really, dear, those pants are doing you no favors. A woman your age should be more conscious of her appearance." She tugged self-consciously at her flour-dusted apron, brushing away invisible imperfections. The morning flew by in a parade of friendly faces and fresh-baked treats. Mrs. Chen picked up her weekly order of butter rolls, sharing stories about her grandchildren's latest school achievements, her eyes twinkling with pride. The Collins twins stopped for their after-school snack, pressing their small faces against the glass display case, leaving tiny fingerprints that Lily never really minded cleaning. 7-year-old Emma always chose chocolate chip cookies, while Jake insisted on cinnamon rolls, their mother patiently counting out exact change from her worn wallet. Each interaction filled Lily's heart with quiet joy, reminding her why she'd chosen this path instead of the corporate career her mother had pushed for since Lily's high school graduation. The sharp click of heels on tile cut through the bakery's warm atmosphere like a knife, making Lily's stomach clench into a tight knot. She knew those footsteps as intimately as she knew her own heartbeat. Looking up from the challah dough she was braiding with practiced fingers, she saw her mother, Ruth Hart, standing pristinely in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than Lily's monthly rent. Not a hair out of place, not a wrinkle to be seen, Ruth surveyed the homey bakery with barely concealed disapproval. "Lillian, we need to speak. Privately." Ruth's voice carried that familiar edge that brooked no argument, the same tone that had dominated Lily's childhood. Lily wiped her hands on her apron, leaving floury streaks across the fabric. She was suddenly acutely aware of how disheveled she must look compared to her immaculate mother. "Mom, I'm in the middle of preparing the afternoon batch. Could this wait until... Now please, in your office." Ruth's words were polite, but her tone left no room for discussion. Following her mother to the small back office, Lily's mind raced with possibilities. Ruth never visited the bakery unless something was wrong. Seriously wrong. The last surprise visit had been to inform Lily that her childhood home had been sold without consulting her. The office door clicked shut behind them with an ominous finality. Ruth's perfectly manicured fingers gripped her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles whitened. For a moment, a flicker of something like fear crossed her face before disappearing behind her usual mask of composure. There's a situation. A man from my past. He's threatening to expose certain indiscretions. Ruth's voice had dropped to just above a whisper, as though the walls themselves might gossip. "What do you mean?" Lily asked, her voice small, childlike in the face of her mother's intensity. The cozy office suddenly felt cramped and airless. "It doesn't matter what I mean," Ruth snapped, then visibly composed herself, smoothing an imaginary wrinkle from her sleeve. "What matters is the solution. The Whitman family has agreed to help if you marry their son." Lily felt like all the air had been sucked from the room. Her flour-dusted hands began to tremble as she gripped the edge of her desk for support. "Mary? Mom, you can't be serious. I don't even know him. I've never even met him." "This isn't up for discussion." Ruth's voice hardened. "You owe me this much, after everything I've sacrificed raising you alone. Do you think it was easy, being a single mother? Do you think I wanted to work 60-hour weeks while you got to play and make friends? But why should I have to fix your mistakes?" The words burst out before Lily could stop them, years of suppressed frustration breaking through the dam of her usual compliance. The moment they left her lips, she wished she could take them back. Ruth's eyes turned to ice, her expression hardening into something almost unrecognizable. "He'll be here tomorrow morning to discuss terms." She smoothed her jacket with clinical precision. "Don't disappoint me, Lillian. Not this time." Lily stood frozen, her dough-covered hands trembling uncontrollably as her mother's words hung heavy in the small office. Outside, the bakery continued its cheerful bustle, completely unaware that Lily's carefully built world had just been shattered into 1,000 pieces. Lily's hands shook violently as she pushed through the swinging door back into the bakery's front area, her heart still pounding from the phone call. Mrs. Chen was still there, concern crossing her weathered face as she took in Lily's ashen complexion. "Are you all right, dear? You look pale as a ghost," she said, setting down the tray of cookies she'd been arranging. "I'm fine," Lily managed, forcing a smile that felt brittle enough to shatter at the slightest touch. "Just family stuff. Nothing new." She busied her trembling fingers with straightening already neat stacks of napkins. The rest of the day passed in a blur of customer orders and mechanical movements. Lily's mind kept replaying her mother's demanding voice, each word like a tiny knife. By 4 o'clock, when she finally flipped the closed sign with a weary flick of her wrist, Lily felt hollow inside, scraped empty by dread. The cheerful bell above the door seemed to mock her mood as she locked up. She trudged up the narrow, creaking stairs to her apartment above the bakery, each step heavy with the weight of her mother's expectations. The faded wallpaper in the stairwell that usually comforted her with its familiarity now seemed to close in, suffocating her with memories. Sinking onto her small floral couch, the cushions sagging from years of use, she pulled out her phone and dialed the one person who always made things better. Her fingers left smudges on the screen from the flour still embedded in her skin. "Marta, can you come over? I really need you right now." She couldn't keep the quaver from her voice. 20 minutes later, Marta bustled through the door without knocking, her silver hair escaping its bun in wispy tendrils around her kind face. She carried a small bag that smelled of warm cinnamon. "What did that woman do now?" she demanded, dropping the bag on the coffee table and putting her hands on her ample hips. Lily burst into tears, the dam breaking completely. The whole story spilled out between hiccuping sobs about her mother's impossible demands and the arrangement she'd made without Lily's consent. Marta listened, her warm brown eyes growing stormy, the wrinkles around her mouth deepening as she frowned. "Mi amor," Marta said finally, pulling Lily close against her soft shoulder that smelled of lavender and baking spices. "You are not your mother's solution to everything. You are not her property to trade away. You have your own voice, your own heart. Don't let her steal that from you, not again." "But what can I do?" Lily whispered, clutching a tissue that was falling apart from her tears. "She always finds a way to make me feel so small." "You stand tall," Marta said firmly, tilting Lily's chin up with a gentle finger. "You speak your truth. The rest will follow. Your mother has only the power you give her." Sleep proved elusive that night. Lily tossed and turned in her bed, the sheets tangling around her legs like restraints. Her mother's words kept tangling with memories of childhood disappointments and constant criticism about her weight, her dreams, her very existence. Morning came too soon, filtering through the thin curtains with merciless brightness. Lily stood before her bathroom mirror, attempting to gather courage from her reflection despite the dark circles under her eyes. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're strong enough. Marta believes in you." She opened the bakery an hour early, needing the comfort of kneading dough, finding solace in the rhythmic pushing and folding. The familiar smells of yeast and sugar helped center her tumbling thoughts. The growl of a motorcycle outside made her jump, flour poofing into the air from her startled hands. Heavy boots crossed the threshold, the bell announcing his arrival, and Lily looked up into the face of the most unexpected person she could have imagined. Cole Reyes was tall and broad-shouldered, his muscular arms covered in intricate tattoos that told stories she couldn't yet read. A leather vest bore patches she didn't recognize. But his eyes? They were gentle, almost kind, a warm hazel that seemed to see right through her defenses. He moved with a quiet grace that seemed at odds with his intimidating appearance, careful not to knock into the delicate display of pastries. "Miss Hart?" His voice was surprisingly soft, respectful, with a slight roughness that suggested strength held carefully in check. "Yes," she managed, brushing flour from her apron nervously. "You're not what I expected." The words tumbled out before she could stop them. A slight smile touched his lips, softening the hard angles of his face. "Your mother contacted our club about an arrangement, for mutual protection." He paused, his gaze steady but not intimidating. "I want you to know there's no pressure here, not from me at least." They talked for several minutes by the counter, the morning light streaming through the windows, catching dust motes in golden beams between them. Not once did his gaze hold the judgment Lily was used to seeing from strangers. There was no sneering at her curves, no dismissal of her profession as just a baker. He listened when she spoke, really listened, his head slightly tilted. "I'll bring the paperwork tomorrow at noon," he said finally, placing a weathered helmet under his arm. "Take time to think it through. This should be your choice, not anyone else's." Lily watched through the window as he started his motorcycle, the machine rumbling to life beneath him with a controlled power. As the sound faded into the distance, she realized her mother had been wrong about him. There was nothing cruel in those gentle eyes, nothing dangerous in that careful respect. Just what kind of arrangement was this really? And why did her heart feel lighter than it had in months? The morning sun streamed through Heaven's Hearth's windows, as Lily mechanically went through her opening routine. Her hands moved on autopilot, measuring flour and sugar, but her mind kept wandering to the meeting ahead. The familiar comfort of her bakery, usually her sanctuary, couldn't soothe the nervous flutter in her stomach today. She'd already dropped the vanilla extract twice, leaving tiny, fragrant puddles on the floor that she'd hastily mopped up. The bell above the door chimed around 10 o'clock. Marta swept in, her familiar flowered dress bringing comfort just by its presence. The older woman's silver-streaked hair was pulled back in her usual practical bun, and the scent of her lavender perfume mingled with the bakery's sweet aromas. "How are you holding up, mi amor?" Marta asked, coming behind the counter to squeeze Lily's flour-dusted hands. Her warm brown eyes scanned Lily's face with motherly concern. "I keep dropping things," Lily admitted, gesturing to the scattered measuring spoons and the sticky spots on the floor. "I can't seem to focus. My mind keeps jumping ahead to the courthouse and what it all means." "That's perfectly normal," Marta assured her, patting Lily's cheek gently. "This is a big day, even if it's just paperwork for now. But remember what I said, you have choices. Always, no matter what your mother thinks or says." The morning rush kept Lily busy until just before noon, whipping up fresh pastries and serving the usual crowd of regulars who filled the small tables by the window. Her hands steadied as she worked, finding comfort in the familiar rhythms of kneading and measuring. Then the now familiar rumble of a motorcycle made her heart skip. Cole entered, ducking his tall frame through the doorway. His presence seemed to fill the entire bakery, drawing curious glances from the few remaining customers. In his hand was a single red rose, which he carefully laid on the counter. "For you," he said simply, his deep voice soft but carrying a weight of meaning that made Lily's breath catch. Lily touched the velvety petals, her cheeks warming to match the flower's crimson hue. "Thank you. Should we?" She gestured towards the back office, suddenly aware of the interested looks from her customers. They settled into the cramped space, Cole's large frame making her usual chair seem small and delicate in comparison. He moved with surprising grace for such a big man, carefully spreading out several documents on her cluttered desk, explaining each one, patiently. "This ensures the bakery stays completely in your name," he said, pointing to one section with a calloused finger. "And this part protects Marta's house from any potential claims. I've made sure everything's airtight." His voice remained gentle, patient, as Lily read through everything twice, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It seems so simple," she said finally, looking up at him, searching his face for any hint of deception, but finding only steady reassurance. "Marriage doesn't have to be complicated," Cole replied, a hint of a smile softening his rugged features. "The paperwork, at least. The rest, we'll figure out as we go." At the courthouse that afternoon, Lily's hand trembled as she held the pen. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everything feel slightly surreal, as if she were watching herself from a distance. The smell of furniture polish and old paper filled the air. As she leaned forward to sign, Cole's warm breath brushed her ear, sending an unexpected shiver down her spine. "I've wanted you for a long time," he whispered. His words meant only for her. Lily's hand froze mid-signature, her heart thundering in her chest. There was no hint of manipulation in his voice, only a raw honesty that made her skin tingle and her pulse quicken. She stole a glance at his face, at the intensity in his dark eyes that spoke volumes more than his words. She finished signing with shaking fingers, hardly hearing the clerk's congratulations or the mechanical stamp that made everything official. Outside on the courthouse steps, Ruth stood waiting, her perfect posture radiating satisfaction. Her cream-colored suit looked freshly pressed despite the warm day, not a hair out of place. We'll need to move quickly with the arrangements, Ruth announced, checking her designer watch impatiently. Appearances must be maintained. I'm thinking next weekend for the reception. Something tasteful but impressive. I've already called Pastor Williams and reserved the country club. Tomorrow morning, Cole interrupted firmly, his tone leaving no room for debate. 9 o'clock. Simple ceremony. Close family only. Ruth's mouth opened in protest, color rising to her perfectly made-up cheeks, but something in Cole's steady gaze made her close it again. She pressed her lips into a tight line, clearly unaccustomed to being overruled. I'll walk you back, Cole said to Lily, effectively dismissing Ruth with a polite nod that somehow managed to be both respectful and immovable. The walk to Heaven's Hearth was quiet, but not uncomfortable. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk, and occasionally their hands brushed, sending tiny sparks up Lily's arm. At the bakery door, Cole paused, towering over her but somehow making her feel protected rather than intimidated. I'll pick you up at 8:30 tomorrow, he said softly, his voice a deep rumble. Get some rest. It's going to be a good day, Lily. Upstairs, in her apartment, Lily sat on her bed, the rose from earlier cradled in her hands. The small space felt different somehow, as if the world had shifted on its axis. Cole's whispered words played on repeat in her mind. I've wanted you for a long time. Her fingers traced the soft petals as she wondered what tomorrow would bring. What did it mean to become someone's wife, even if only on paper? And why did that whispered confession make her feel both terrified and strangely hopeful at the same time? Lily woke before dawn, her eyes gritty from fitful sleep. The digital clock's red numbers showed 4:30, her usual bakery wake-up time. She'd barely slept, drifting in and out of anxious dreams where she was running through endless hallways, trying to escape her mother's disapproving stare. Each time she'd jolted awake, her heart pounding against her ribs, the reality of tomorrow, now today, crashed over her again. In the dark kitchen below, she moved through her familiar routine with practiced ease. The sourdough starter needed feeding, its slightly sour smell comforting in its predictability. Several loaves required shaping before their final rise, and her fingers found peace in the rhythmic kneading. Her hands worked the dough mechanically, finding comfort in the familiar motions as she folded and pressed, the cool, elastic texture grounding her when nothing else seemed certain anymore. Last morning here for a while, she whispered to the empty bakery, her voice echoing slightly against the stainless steel counters and tiled walls. A handwritten note on the door explained the temporary closure. Something about a family emergency, as Ruth had insisted. The lie felt bitter on Lily's tongue, like the aftertaste of burnt sugar. She'd never been good at deception, even when it was her mother's idea. Especially when it was her mother's idea. By 9:30, she had changed 3 times, discarding outfits that seemed too casual, too formal, or too revealing for a courthouse wedding. She finally settled on a simple blue dress that brought out the color in her eyes. Her small suitcase waited by the door, packed with essentials and a few treasured items. A photograph of her father, her favorite baking cookbook, and the tiny ceramic bird her first regular customer had given her. When the motorcycle rumbled outside at precisely 10 o'clock, her heart jumped like a startled rabbit. Cole wore dark jeans and a clean white shirt that stretched across his broad shoulders, his leather jacket absent today. His hair was neatly combed, and Lily noticed he'd trimmed his beard. There was something touchingly vulnerable about his efforts to look presentable. "Ready?" he asked simply, his deep voice gentle, offering no pressure despite the weight of what they were about to do. The courthouse was quiet for a Thursday morning, the marble floors gleaming under the overhead lights. They found the judge's chamber easily, the wooden door creaking as they entered the small, Official-looking room with its wall of leather-bound law books. Everything felt surreal. The harsh fluorescent lights casting shadows under Cole's eyes, the worn carpet with its faded pattern, the judge's kind but tired smile as she explained the procedure. Lily felt like she was watching herself from a distance, a spectator to the most important decision of her life. "Do you, Cole Reyes, take Lillian Hart to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the judge asked, her voice carrying the weight of countless ceremonies past. "I do." His voice was steady, warm, with an undercurrent of sincerity that caught Lily off guard. His eyes met hers, clear and unwavering. "Do you, Lillian Hart, take Cole Reyes to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Lily's voice trembled slightly, her throat suddenly dry. "I do." The words hung in the air between them, simple yet life-changing. The rest passed in a blur of signatures and official stamps, the scratching of pens and rustling of papers. Cole's hand was gentle as he slipped a simple gold band onto her finger, his touch careful, as if she might break. Lily noticed his hands were calloused but clean, nails neatly trimmed. They were the hands of someone who worked hard, but took pride in himself. Outside, Ruth waited on the courthouse steps, perfectly coiffed in her designer suit, not a hair out of place despite the gentle breeze. Her lips were pressed into a thin line of barely concealed impatience. "Well, that's done," she said briskly, checking her watch. "Now, Lillian, you'll need to move in immediately. We can't have people questioning the legitimacy." "Mrs. Hart," Cole interrupted quietly, his tone respectful but firm. "This is Lily's decision." Ruth's eyes narrowed, and Lily recognized the dangerous glint that appeared whenever someone challenged her authority. "Surely you understand the importance of appearances." "I'll go," Lily said quickly, seeing the gathering storm in her mother's expression. "It makes sense." She didn't add that she feared what Ruth might do to the bakery if she refused. Her mother had always been good at finding invisible leverage points, pressure applied just where it hurt most. Cole's house surprised her. The old farmhouse sat on several acres at the edge of town, where manicured lawns gave way to wilder meadows dotted with wildflowers. Its white paint was fresh and neat, the wraparound porch inviting rather than imposing. A well-tended garden stretched along one side, rows of vegetables interspersed with bright flowers, and the porch held comfortable-looking chairs with faded cushions that spoke of many peaceful evenings spent watching the sunset. "It's not what you expected," Cole said, helping her off the motorcycle, his hand steady under her elbow. "No," Lily admitted, taking in the picturesque scene. "It's lovely." She wondered how many assumptions she'd made about him, all now crumbling in the face of this unexpected reality. Inside was equally unexpected. Hardwood floors gleamed with a warm honey glow, and sunlight streamed through clean windows, catching dust motes dancing in the air. The furniture was solid, comfortable-looking, with handmade quilts adding splashes of color to the earth-toned room. A bookshelf stood against one wall, filled with well-worn paperbacks and what looked like repair manuals. Nothing like the cluttered, dark space she'd imagined a biker might inhabit. "The kitchen's through there," Cole gestured toward an open doorway, from which Lily could glimpse countertops and the corner of a farmhouse sink. "I thought you might like that, it's big." He picked up her suitcase with ease. "Your room is upstairs." The guest room was spacious and bright, with a bay window overlooking the garden and the rolling fields beyond. A quilted bedspread in soft blues and greens covered the bed, its intricate pattern speaking of careful craftsmanship. Empty drawers waited in a sturdy dresser made of oak, and a small writing desk sat beneath the window, bathed in natural light. "Bathrooms across the hall," Cole said, setting down her suitcase with gentle care. "I'll let you get settled." He paused at the door, his large frame filling the doorway. "Lily?" This is your space. You're safe here." The words were simple but delivered with such quiet conviction that Lily felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. Then he was gone, his footsteps retreating down the stairs, leaving her alone with the silence. Lily stood in the center of the room, her room now, feeling strangely displaced yet protected. The quiet of the house wrapped around her like a blanket, so different from the constant city noise above her bakery. Here there was only the occasional bird song, the distant rustle of leaves in the breeze. She moved to the window, watching a red cardinal hop along the garden fence, its bright feathers a splash of color against the green. Everything had changed so quickly, yet something about this place, about Cole's gentle presence, made her feel oddly secure. Safe, as he'd said, without any strings or expectations attached to the word. Her fingers touched the wedding band on her left hand, the metal still unfamiliar against her skin. Yesterday morning, she'd been kneading dough in her bakery, worrying about bills and her mother's latest demands. Now she stood in her new husband's farmhouse, married to a man she barely knew, but who had shown her nothing but respect and kindness. But somehow, in this sun-filled room with its soft quilt and empty drawers waiting to be filled with her few belongings, she felt more at peace than she had in years. As if she'd stumbled unexpectedly into a quiet harbor after years of weathering storms. The afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen windows, painting golden stripes across the tiled floor as Lily heard pots clanking downstairs. The familiar domestic sounds drew her like a magnet. Following the rhythmic symphony of kitchen work, she descended the stairs and paused at the doorway. Cole moved confidently around the kitchen with unexpected grace for such a large man, chicken sizzling and popping on a well-seasoned cast-iron grill pan, the meat browning to perfection. "I hope you're hungry," he said, glancing up from his work with those steady eyes that seemed to see right through her. "Nothing fancy, but it'll be hot and filling." The kitchen smelled absolutely amazing. Fresh herbs and minced garlic mixing with the rich scent of grilling meat. Colorful vegetables roasted in the oven, their edges crisping nicely, and a crusty loaf of bread warmed alongside them, filling the room with a homey, comforting aroma that made Lily's stomach rumble softly. "Can I help with anything?" Lily asked, hovering uncertainly by the counter, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her sleeve. Cooking together had always been a battlefield with Ruth, who criticized her every move in the kitchen. "Just sit and relax. You've had a long day." He gestured to a cushioned stool at the kitchen island, his motion gentle but firm. "Everything's almost ready anyway." She settled onto the stool and watched him work, noting his sure, economical movements. There was something soothing about watching someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "I didn't expect," she began, then trailed off, unsure how to finish without sounding rude. "That I could cook?" A slight smile touched his lips, softening his rugged features. "My grandmother, my abuela, insisted all her grandkids learn their way around a kitchen. Said being able to feed yourself properly was as important as knowing how to change a tire or handle your money. Basic life skills, she called them. Over plates of perfectly grilled herb-crusted chicken and roasted vegetables with just the right amount of caramelization, they talked easily, the awkwardness between them melting away with each bite. Cole told her about growing up in his grandmother's modest house 2 towns over, helping in her sprawling vegetable garden where he learned the difference between weeds and seedlings. Lily found herself sharing stories about learning to bake from Marta, the way her godmother would sing Spanish lullabies in her rich, melodic voice, while teaching a young Lily to knead bread dough with her small hands. "First thing I ever baked was chocolate chip cookies," Lily said, relaxing despite herself, her shoulders dropping from their tense position near her ears. "I was 8. Made such a mess with the flour that it looked like it had snowed in Marta's kitchen. She just laughed and helped me clean up. My first attempt at cooking was scrambled eggs when I was about 6, Cole admitted, with a chuckle that rumbled deep in his chest. Burned them black as coal. Abuela made me eat every bite anyway, said it would teach me to pay attention next time. After dinner, Cole cleared the plates despite Lily's half-hearted protests, stacking them neatly by the sink. You're used to taking care of everyone else, he said quietly, his voice gentle but matter-of-fact. Let someone take care of you for a change. It's not weakness to accept help, Lily. His words touched something raw and tender inside her that she couldn't quite examine yet. Later, as evening settled in and stars began to peek out beyond the windows, Cole showed her around the house properly, where to find fresh towels, extra blankets for chilly nights, and how to work the somewhat temperamental coffee maker for morning. About our arrangement, he said carefully, standing at a respectful distance in the hallway. You set the boundaries. Whatever makes you comfortable. This is your home now, too, not just mine. I want you to feel safe here. Lily nodded, genuinely touched by his thoughtful consideration. Thank you for everything today. It means more than I can say. Good night, Lily. He gave her one last gentle look before heading to his room down the hall, closing the door softly behind him. In bed, surrounded by sheets that smelled of clean laundry and a faint hint of pine, Lily stared at the textured ceiling, thinking how different Cole was from Ruth's dire warnings about those rough bikers from the bad side of town. His unexpected gentleness, his quiet strength, his consideration, nothing like the dangerous criminal her mother had constantly implied he would be. The contrast between expectation and reality left her mind spinning. Morning came early, sunlight streaming through the bay window and dappling across her borrowed bed. The rich, inviting smell of freshly brewed coffee drew her downstairs, where she found Cole already dressed in clean work clothes, his hair still damp from a shower. 2 steaming mugs waited on the counter like a peace offering. Sleep okay? He asked, sliding one toward her, the ceramic warm against her fingers when she accepted it. Yes, actually. Lily wrapped her hands around the comforting warmth of the mug, inhaling the aromatic steam. Better than I have in weeks. She glanced up, meeting his eyes directly. Cole, thank you for being so kind yesterday. This isn't what I expected when we made our arrangement. Let's keep it that way, he said, his voice steady and sure. Honest communication. No games, no hidden agendas. That's the only way this works for both of us. She nodded, appreciating his straightforward directness. It was refreshing after years of Ruth's veiled criticisms and passive-aggressive hints. After a simple breakfast of toast and fruit, Cole brought his motorcycle around from the garage. The machine gleamed in the morning light, powerful and imposing. Ready to face the town? He asked, handing her the spare helmet. The ride to Heaven's Hearth was quick in the early morning quiet. The streets nearly empty, except for delivery trucks and early risers. Cole helped her down from the bike with a gentle hand, waiting patiently as she fished out her keys and unlocked the front door to her bakery. Mrs. Peterson from the flower shop across the street was already arranging her sidewalk display, barely hiding behind her buckets of fresh roses and carnations, her curious eyes taking in every detail of their arrival. See you later, Cole said, his voice deliberately loud enough to carry across the street. His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners with amusement at their audience. The bell above the door chimed cheerfully as her first customers of the day arrived, the morning regulars who came faithfully for coffee and fresh pastries. Their eyes widened almost comically as they spotted her wedding ring glinting in the morning light. Lily, we missed you yesterday, said Tom, her elderly regular with the neatly trimmed white beard. He leaned heavily on his cane, peering at her over his reading glasses. And was that Cole Reyes who dropped you off? On that big motorcycle? Lily touched her ring unconsciously, feeling the unfamiliar weight of the gold band and the heavy scrutiny of their curious gazes. "Yes," she said simply, moving behind the counter to start preparing their usual orders, feeling the weight of a dozen unasked questions hanging in the air around her. Throughout the morning, customers filtered into Heaven's Hearth, their eyes lingering on Lily's ring. She could hear the whispers, see the surprised glances, could feel the weight of their curiosity as they watched her behind the counter. But she focused intently on her work, carefully measuring flour with practiced hands, checking the golden brown crusts in the ovens, neatly packaging orders in crisp brown paper bags tied with simple twine. "Is it true?" Martha Jenkins asked, while picking up her weekly sourdough, her eyes wide with excitement as she leaned across the counter. The scent of fresh bread wafted between them. "You and Cole Reyes?" Lily nodded, her cheeks warming slightly as she managed a small smile. "Yes, we got married yesterday." The word still felt strange on her tongue, like a new recipe she was testing out. "Well." Martha's eyes sparkled with delight as she clutched the bread to her chest. "He's always been such a gentleman when fixing my car. That time my transmission went out in the middle of winter, he stayed late to make sure I wasn't stranded. Quiet, but kind. That one's got a good heart under all that leather." More customers came throughout the day with similar questions, each adding their own observations about Cole. Mrs. Wilson mentioned how he'd helped her son find work at the garage. Old Mr. Barnes recalled how Cole had silently shoveled his walkway after the big storm last January. To Lily's genuine surprise, most comments were positive. Heartfelt stories of him helping elderly neighbors with household repairs or quietly supporting local businesses when they struggled. Around 2 o'clock, the familiar rumble of a motorcycle drew everyone's attention. The bell above the door jingled, and conversations hushed as Cole stepped in, his broad shoulders filling the doorframe. He carried 2 large bags of flour, effortlessly, as if they weighed nothing at all. The flour dust settled on his black leather jacket like a dusting of snow. "Thought you might need a refill," he said quietly, giving Lily a gentle nod before heading to the storage room. His boots made soft thuds against the wooden floor. While there, he noticed the loose cabinet door that had been bothering Lily for weeks, the one that wouldn't quite close properly, and made an annoying squeak. Without being asked, he pulled out a small toolkit from his leather jacket pocket and fixed it in minutes, his large hands moving with surprising gentleness as he tightened screws and adjusted the hinges. Mrs. Peterson from across the street suddenly found an urgent excuse to buy a blueberry muffin, watching Cole work with obvious curiosity over her wire-rimmed glasses. "Such handy skills," she commented, loud enough for others to hear, nudging her friend with a meaningful look. "Always good to have a man who knows his way around tools." After the shop closed at 5, Cole helped Lily clean up, sweeping the floor with methodical strokes while she wiped down counters and put away ingredients. The evening light streamed through the windows, catching the dust motes in golden beams. "Want to see something?" he asked, almost shy, running a hand through his dark hair. "At home, my workshop, if you're not too tired, that is." His deep voice held a note of uncertainty she hadn't heard before. Behind the weathered farmhouse stood a converted barn, its red paint faded by years of sun and rain. Inside, Lily gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The space was immaculate, unlike what she'd imagined a biker's workshop would be. Motorcycle parts gleamed like sculptures, arranged artistically on shelves and pegboards. But what caught her eye were the painted pieces. Gas tanks decorated with intricate designs of eagles and mountains, fenders bearing delicate scrollwork in shades of crimson and gold, handlebars wrapped in custom leather with tiny embossed patterns. "You did all this?" she asked in wonder, touching a metal panel painted with twining roses, each petal so delicate it looked like it might come alive under her fingertips. The whole room smelled of paint and metal and something uniquely Cole. Cole nodded, a hint of pride softening his usually guarded expression. Most people see bikers as just tough guys with loud machines, but there's artistry in what we do. He guided her through the workshop, showing her his current project, a vintage motorcycle being lovingly restored, its parts carefully painted with deep blues and silver accents that reminded Lily of moonlight on water. Been working on this one for months. It's beautiful, Lily said softly, genuinely moved by the craftsmanship. Like jewelry for machines. I had no idea you could do this. She studied the intricate patterns, seeing a side of him that his tough exterior had hidden. Back in the house, they warmed up leftover chicken and roasted vegetables, sitting at the kitchen counter rather than the formal dining room. The kitchen felt cozier, safer somehow, with its worn wooden surfaces and hanging copper pots catching the evening light. People used to cross the street when they saw me coming, Cole said, pushing food around his plate with his fork. Judge a book by its cover, you know. These tattoos, they tell my story, but folks just see what they expect to see. He glanced down at the inked designs covering his arms, each one meaningful to him, but intimidating to strangers. Lily understood all too well, nodding as she set down her glass of water. My mother, she always had expectations I couldn't meet. She sighed, remembering the constant criticism. Too heavy, too plain, too different from what she wanted in a daughter. She stared at her hands, tracing a small flower burn on her index finger. Nothing was ever enough, no matter how hard I tried to be what she wanted. Hey, Cole said gently, reaching across the counter to lightly touch her hand, his calloused fingers surprisingly warm. You're enough just as you are. More than enough. His eyes held hers, honest and clear. Later they sat in the living room, the TV off, comfortable silence between them like a soft blanket. Lily curled in an overstuffed armchair with a baking magazine, occasionally turning pages, while Cole sketched new designs in a worn leather notebook, his pencil making soft, scratching sounds. No pressure to talk, just quiet companionship as evening settled around them, the old farmhouse creaking gently as it cooled in the night air. When the clock on the mantel struck 10 with soft chimes, they both stood naturally, as if choreographed, ready for bed. Good night, Cole, Lily said softly, gathering her magazine. Sleep well, Lily, he replied with a gentle nod, his deep voice warm in the quiet room. He headed to his room on the ground floor as she climbed the creaking wooden stairs to hers, both carrying the comfortable silence of their evening with them like a newfound treasure. Early morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as Lily moved quietly around the space, pulling out eggs and bread. She wanted to do something nice for Cole, even if it was just a simple breakfast. The sizzle of bacon filled the air just as Cole came downstairs, his hair slightly tousled from sleep. You didn't have to do this, he said, but his smile was warm. I wanted to, Lily replied, sliding eggs onto plates. I thought maybe we could talk about, how to make this work. Over breakfast, they discussed practical matters, sharing the bathroom schedule, grocery shopping, who would cook on which days. Cole insisted on splitting household duties evenly. And your space is your space, he emphasized. I'll never enter your room without permission. Lily nodded gratefully. As she gathered the plates, Cole cleared his throat. I was thinking, would you like to go for a ride after work today? Nothing crazy, just some scenic routes I know. The idea made her nervous, but something in his steady gaze gave her courage. Okay, she agreed. At the bakery, the morning passed normally until the bell chimed around 11. Lily looked up to see Trisha Barnes sauntering in, her designer purse swinging. Trisha had tormented her throughout school, always ready with a cruel comment about Lily's weight or clothes. "Well, well," Trisha drawled, looking around the bakery with exaggerated interest. "I heard the most fascinating gossip, but I just had to see for myself. Little Lily? Married to a biker?" She laughed sharply. "I guess when you're desperate enough." Lily felt the old urge to shrink away, to hide. But something had changed. Maybe it was Cole's quiet strength rubbing off on her, or maybe she was just tired of letting others make her feel small. "What can I get you today, Trisha?" she asked calmly, standing straight behind the counter. Trisha's smile faltered at Lily's composed response. "Oh, nothing here. Watching my figure, unlike some people." She turned to leave, then paused. "Hope your bad boy doesn't get tired of his charity case too quickly." "Have a nice day," Lily replied steadily, watching Trisha's retreating back with newfound detachment. The words that would once have crushed her now seemed to bounce off, leaving her unscathed. When Cole arrived after closing, he found Lily already waiting. He handed her a spare helmet, showing her how to secure it properly. "Hold on to me," he instructed, as she settled behind him on the motorcycle. "Lean when I lean, but don't worry. I'll take it easy." The engine rumbled to life, and they were off. At first, Lily held on tensely, but as they left town behind, she began to relax. The late afternoon sun painted the hills in gold, and the wind whipped around them in a way that made her feel weightless. Cole took them along winding country roads, past fields dotted with wildflowers, and through patches of forest where leaves danced in their wake. Lily found herself smiling inside her helmet, amazed at how free she felt. When they finally returned home, the sky was turning purple with sunset. They sat on the porch steps, still buzzing from the ride. "That was incredible," Lily admitted, running her fingers through her wind-tangled hair. Cole smiled. "Sometimes you need to see the world from a different perspective." He paused, then added softly, "I used to ride out here when things got tough at home. My old man, he wasn't always easy to live with." Lily touched his arm gently. "My mother's idea of affection was criticism disguised as concern. Maybe that's why this bakery means so much to me. It's the first thing that was truly mine." They sat in comfortable silence as stars began appearing above them. When Lily finally headed up to bed, she felt lighter than she had in years. Lying in the darkness, she could still feel the phantom sensation of wind rushing past, carrying away old hurts and making room for something new. Sunlight streamed through Lily's window, casting warm patterns on her bedspread. She stretched, still thinking about last night's motorcycle ride and the surprising peace she'd found in the wind and speed. The bakery hummed with its usual morning activity. The whir of mixers, the clinking of pans, the chatter of regular customers. Around 2 p.m, Cole stopped by, carrying a box of fresh coffee filters she'd mentioned running low on. "I was thinking," he said, leaning against the counter while she arranged a display of cupcakes. "Would you want to come meet some friends tonight? At the clubhouse?" Lily's hands stilled on the frosting bag. The motorcycle club had always seemed mysterious, slightly dangerous, but Cole's gentle presence had already challenged so many of her assumptions. "They're good people," Cole added softly. "And you're part of our family now, even if this started unconventionally." "Okay," Lily agreed, surprising herself with how much she meant it. That evening, they pulled up to a well-maintained building on the edge of town. Motorcycles lined the front, gleaming under strings of outdoor lights. Lily smoothed her dress nervously. "Just be yourself," Cole whispered, helping her off the bike. Inside, the clubhouse was nothing like Lily expected. It was clean, organized, with comfortable furniture and a pool table. Several men and women looked up as they entered, their faces open and welcoming. A lean man with bright eyes bounded forward. "Finally," he exclaimed. "I'm Danny Park, Cole's best friend and general pain in his neck." Lily couldn't help smiling at Danny's infectious enthusiasm. He guided her around, introducing her to everyone, telling funny stories about Cole that made him groan good-naturedly. "You know," Danny said quietly when they had a moment alone, "Cole's different since you came along. Happier. You matter to him. Have for a while, actually." Before Lily could ask what he meant, her attention was caught by a large bulletin board covered in photos. Club events, charity rides, celebrations, moments of found family captured in snapshots. But one photo made her breath catch. It was from the summer festival 3 years ago. The focus was on some club members, but in the background, Lily could see herself clearly. She was kneeling beside a scraggly kitten, offering it part of her sandwich. And there, at the edge of the frame, was Cole, looking directly at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. The ride home was quiet, filled with unspoken questions. When they arrived, Lily finally found her voice. "That photo," she began. Cole ran a hand through his hair. "I saw you that day," he admitted. "You were so gentle with that little stray. Everyone else just walked past, but you stopped, shared your lunch, made sure it was okay." He looked down at his hands. I'd never seen such pure kindness before. It stuck with me. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Look at me." He gestured to his tattoos, his rough exterior. "I didn't think someone like you would want anything to do with someone like me." Later, lying in bed, Lily's mind whirled with too many thoughts to count. The warmth of the club members' welcome. Danny's knowing smile. The way Cole had seen her, really seen her, long before any arrangement brought them together. Her heart felt full and uncertain all at once, like a cup brimming with something both sweet and overwhelming. She touched her cheek, surprised to find it wet with tears she hadn't realized she'd shed. They weren't sad tears, exactly. They were something else. Something that felt like hope and fear and possibility all mixed together. Morning sunlight spilled across the farmhouse kitchen as Lily stirred cream into her coffee. The gentle clink of her spoon against the mug seemed loud in the quiet room. Cole sat across from her, reading the morning paper, but she could tell he sensed her hesitation. "Can I ask you something?" Lily ventured, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. Cole folded the paper and gave her his full attention. "Anything." "That photo at the clubhouse, with the kitten." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "How did you... Did I watch you after that?" Cole's voice was gentle. "No. I respected your space. I just remembered how kind you were that day. It stayed with me." Relief washed over Lily's face. "Thank you for telling me." "I saw you sometimes at the bakery when I'd ride past," he admitted. "But I never wanted to make you uncomfortable. Some people see guys like me and assume the worst." The honesty in his eyes made something warm bloom in Lily's chest. Their peaceful morning was interrupted by the sharp click of heels on the bakery floor below. Ruth Hart's voice cut through the quiet. "Lillian? Are you here?" Lily tensed, her fingers tightening around her mug. Cole reached across the table and squeezed her hand briefly before she stood to face her mother. Ruth was impeccably dressed as always, her disapproving gaze taking in Lily's simple outfit. "There you are. I need you and Cole to attend the hospital fundraiser on Friday evening." "Mother, I don't think..." "This isn't a request, Lillian. People are talking. We need to show a united front, present the right image. Ruth's lips pressed into a thin line. 7 o'clock sharp, wear something appropriate. After Ruth swept out, Lily slumped against the counter, feeling drained. The bell above the door chimed again, but this time Marta's warm presence filled the space. I saw Hurricane Ruth leaving, Marta said, pulling Lily into a hug. What happened, sweetheart? Lily explained about the fundraiser, her voice shaking slightly. I hate these events. Mother always finds ways to point out my flaws in front of everyone. Listen to me, Marta said firmly, holding Lily by the shoulders. You are not the same girl who used to let Ruth's words break you. You're stronger now, and you're not alone anymore. That evening, Lily sat with Cole on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in soft pinks and oranges. She told him about the fundraiser, about her fears of facing Ruth's social circle. You don't have to go, Cole said quietly. We can tell her no. Lily shook her head. I need to face this. I'm not sure I'm ready. Then I'll be right beside you. Cole's voice was steady, certain. Whatever you need. If you want to leave early, if you need a signal to rescue you from conversations, if you just want someone to hold your hand, I'm there. The simple promise settled something in Lily's chest. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. No grand declarations were needed, just the quiet understanding that they would face Ruth's challenges together. In the growing darkness, Lily felt Cole's solid presence beside her, strong and reassuring. Whatever the fundraiser might bring, she wasn't alone anymore. That knowledge gave her a courage she hadn't known she possessed. The next 2 days passed quietly as Lily and Cole prepared outfits and practiced small-talk prompts for Ruth's high society fundraiser. On Friday evening, Lily stood in front of her bedroom mirror, smoothing down her navy blue dress. The fabric was soft and flowing, chosen carefully to make her feel comfortable. A gentle knock sounded at her door. Ready? Cole called. Lily opened the door and caught her breath. Cole had cleaned up nicely while staying true to himself. He wore a crisp black button-down shirt and dark jeans, his tattoos visible below his rolled sleeves. His long hair was neatly tied back, and his boots were polished to a shine. You look beautiful, he said softly, offering his arm. They rode to the country club in Cole's truck, rather than on his motorcycle, a concession to the formal nature of the event. As they pulled up to the grand entrance, Lily's stomach tightened at the sight of valets in red jackets and women in sparkly dresses. Whispers followed them as they entered the elegant ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over perfectly arranged tables, while classical music played from hidden speakers. Ruth materialized immediately, her smile tight. Finally, she hissed, grabbing Lily's arm. Remember, stick to safe topics. And Cole, perhaps you could cover those drawings on your arms? Cole gently removed Ruth's hand from Lily's arm. Ma'am, we're here to support the hospital. We'll do that our way. Ruth's face flushed, but before she could respond, a cluster of her friends approached. Lily recognized Mrs. Peterson and Mrs. Barnes, Trisha's mother, among them. Ruth, darling. Mrs. Peterson's voice dripped with false sweetness. How interesting to see your new son-in-law. And Lillian, dear, that dress is quite brave for your figure. Lily felt herself shrinking inward, but Cole's steady hand on her back kept her grounded. Actually, Cole's deep voice carried clearly but quietly, I was just telling someone how stunning Lily looks tonight. But then, she's beautiful every day, especially when she's helping elderly Mrs. Jenkins carry her groceries to her car, or teaching the Thompson kids how to bake cookies after school. He smiled genuinely at the group. My wife's heart is what makes her truly gorgeous. I'm sure you ladies understand that kind of beauty. The kind that comes from kindness?" The women fell silent, some looking ashamed, others thoughtful. From across the room, several other guests were nodding in approval. Ruth stood frozen, her carefully crafted social script shattered by Cole's honest words. Lily felt tears pricking at her eyes, but not from shame this time. No one had ever defended her like this, with such calm conviction and genuine appreciation. "Would you like to get some air?" Cole asked softly, noticing her emotion. They stepped out onto the terrace, where twinkling lights decorated the gardens. Lily's hands were shaking as she gripped the stone railing. "Did you mean all that?" she whispered. "Every word." Cole's voice was firm. "Ready to head home?" Lily nodded, overwhelmed by the evening's events and the way Cole had stood up for her. As they walked to the truck, she felt lighter somehow, as if a heavy weight had begun to lift from her shoulders. Back at the farmhouse, the night air hummed with crickets as Cole and Lily stepped inside. The kitchen clock showed nearly 11, but neither felt ready for sleep. Cole moved to the stove while Lily sank into a kitchen chair, her feet aching from the fancy heels. "Chamomile or peppermint?" Cole asked, reaching for the tea tin. "Chamomile, please." Lily watched as he filled the kettle. His formal shirt was unbuttoned at the collar now, but he still carried himself with that quiet dignity that had impressed even Ruth's harshest critics. Steam rose from their mugs as they sat across from each other at the small kitchen table. "Thank you," Lily said softly, "for what you said tonight. No one's ever stood up for me like that." Cole's eyes were gentle. "They needed to see you like I do." The grandfather clock in the living room chimed, and they finished their tea in comfortable silence before heading to their separate rooms. Morning sunlight streamed through the bakery windows as Lily tied on her apron. For the first time in years, she didn't hunch her shoulders or try to make herself smaller. Cole's words from the previous night echoed in her mind as she shaped croissants and chatted with customers. The morning rush had just ended when the bell above the door chimed. A man in an expensive suit entered, his polished shoes clicking on the tile floor. Something about his smile made Lily's stomach tighten. "Miss Hart, or should I say Mrs. Reyes now?" His voice was smooth as honey, but his eyes were cold. "I'm Patrick Winters." Lily's hands stilled on the display case she'd been wiping. Winters, the same last name as the man threatening her mother with scandal. "My father sends his regards," Patrick continued, leaning against the counter. "Interesting situation we all find ourselves in, isn't it? Speaking of interesting situations." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. "Remember St. Mary's Hospital, about 8 years ago? That unfortunate incident with the unpaid bill?" Lily's face went hot. She remembered. She'd fallen down the stairs at home after Ruth had insisted on waxing them herself instead of hiring professionals. Ruth had refused to pay the emergency room bill, claiming Lily's clumsiness wasn't her responsibility. The bill had gone to collections before Marta helped her settle it. "Imagine how it would look," Patrick mused, "if people knew the sweet baker couldn't pay her debts, or how your mother left you to handle it alone. Of course, this could all go away if you convinced your new husband to back off my father's arrangement with Ruth." Lily's hands trembled, but she lifted her chin. "No." Patrick's smile vanished. "Excuse me?" "I said no." Lily's voice grew stronger. "I won't help you threaten my mother, and I won't manipulate my husband. Please leave my bakery." After Patrick stormed out, Lily had to sit down, her legs shaky. But underneath the fear was a spark of pride. She'd stood her ground. That evening, as she and Cole sat on the porch swing after dinner, Lily told him everything. Cole listened intently, his jaw tightening at Patrick's threats. "I'll look into him," Cole said when she finished. "Danny's good with background research. We'll figure out what they're really after." "We?" Lily asked softly. Cole took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. "We're in this together now. Whatever's coming, we'll face it as a team." They sat there planning their next steps as the sun set, turning the sky pink and gold. For the first time since this whole situation began, Lily felt truly certain about something. She wasn't alone anymore. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as Lily prepared coffee. Cole stood by the door, shrugging on his leather jacket. "I'll talk to Danny and the others," he said, his voice gentle but determined. "We need to understand what Patrick's really up to." Lily nodded, trying to hide her worry. "Be careful." "Always am." He touched her shoulder softly before heading out. The rumble of his motorcycle faded into the distance as Lily gathered her things for the bakery. The morning crowd was bigger than usual. Mrs. Peterson, who'd attended the fundraiser, brought her entire garden club. "We heard how that young man of yours stood up for you," Mrs. Peterson said warmly, ordering a dozen muffins. "About time someone put those country club snobs in their place." Throughout the morning, more supporters arrived. Mr. Jenkins from the hardware store, the entire staff from the local diner. Even Trisha Barnes stopped by, awkwardly apologizing for her previous rudeness. Around 3 o'clock, Cole returned. His face was serious as he led Lily to the back office. "Patrick's in trouble," he explained. "Danny found out he's nearly bankrupt, lost everything gambling. He's desperate for money, and he's using his father's grudge against your mother to try to get it." Lily sank into her chair. "That's why he's threatening us? For money?" "Seems like it, but we're not letting him win." Cole's voice was firm. "The club's got your back." That evening, Lily transformed the bakery into a warm gathering space. Fairy lights twinkled in the windows, and the aroma of fresh pastries filled the air. Cole and several club members stationed themselves outside, greeting guests. The open house drew a steady stream of visitors. Children pressed their faces against the display cases, while parents chatted over cups of hot chocolate. Danny's wife taught Lily the secret handshake the club wives shared. Even some of Ruth's social circle showed up, praising Lily's baking and hospitality. Just as the event was winding down, the door burst open. Ruth stumbled in, her usually perfect makeup smeared with tears. "Lily," she gasped, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know what else to do." The room went silent. Cole stepped forward, his expression wary. "What did you do, Ruth?" "Patrick's father. He had evidence of things I did years ago. Terrible things. I gave Patrick access to the bakery's financial records, thinking it would satisfy them." Ruth's voice cracked. "But now they're using it against the business license. They're claiming improper documentation." Lily felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Those records included private information about her employees, supplier contracts, everything she'd built. Cole's face went rigid. He turned away, his shoulders tense. The other club members exchanged dark looks. This breach of trust affected their protection arrangement. "Everyone out," Danny called firmly to the remaining guests. "Show's over." As people filed out, whispering, Lily mechanically began cleaning up. Her hands shook as she wrapped leftover pastries and wiped down counters. Cole helped silently, but the warm connection they'd built felt frozen. When the last crumb was swept away, Cole spoke. "I need some time to think." His voice was hollow as he walked out. Lily stood alone in her darkened bakery. A tear splashed onto the freshly cleaned counter, followed by another and another. The fairy lights still twinkled in the windows, but their warm glow now seemed to mock the cold emptiness in her chest. The sunrise painted weak streaks of pink across Lily's window as she stared at her reflection. Dark circles shadowed her eyes after a night of tossing and turning. Her hands trembled slightly as she pinned up her hair, missing Cole's usual morning greeting from downstairs. At the bakery, she moved through the motions of mixing dough and heating ovens, but her heart wasn't in it. Every time the door chimed, she tensed, wondering if it would be Patrick with more threats. By 10 o'clock, she knew she couldn't continue like this. After the morning rush, she flipped the closed sign and called Marta. "I'm coming right over," Marta said firmly, "and I'm bringing Edward Thompson. He's the best small business lawyer in town." While waiting, Lily gathered her documentation. Years of careful record-keeping now threatened by her mother's betrayal. Her fingers traced over the neat columns of numbers, each representing trust built with suppliers and employees. Across town, Cole faced his own struggles at the club. The usually welcoming garage felt tense as members whispered about newspaper headlines and reputation damage. "This isn't what we signed up for," one member grumbled. "A private arrangement is one thing, but public scandal?" Danny stood by Cole, but even he looked worried. "We need to contain this, brother." Cole nodded grimly, grabbing his keys. "I know where to start." He found Ruth at her perfectly manicured home, arranging flowers as if nothing was wrong. When she saw him, her hands fluttered nervously. "You're going to fix this," Cole said quietly. His calm voice carried more weight than any shout. "I can't," Ruth whispered. "If people knew what I did." "They already know you're willing to sacrifice your daughter to save yourself." Cole's words hit hard. "The question is, are you willing to do it twice?" Ruth's fingers crushed a flower stem. "You don't understand?" "No, you don't understand. Lily deserves better, from all of us." Back at the bakery, Marta and Edward Thompson reviewed the documents spread across a flour-dusted table. The lawyer's experienced eyes caught details Lily hadn't considered. "There are ways to protect you," he assured her. "Your mother's actions were unauthorized. We can file for an immediate injunction." Lily nodded, taking notes with shaking hands. Marta squeezed her shoulder. "You're stronger than you know, dear heart," she murmured. "And you're not alone." As evening settled over the town, Cole's motorcycle rumbled into the driveway. Lily's heart leapt, then fell as she saw his distant expression. He stood awkwardly in the kitchen doorway, looking lost in his own home. "I just wanted to check," he started, then trailed off. "That I hadn't fallen apart?" Lily's voice cracked. "That's what everyone expects, isn't it? Poor, weak Lily, always needing protection." Cole flinched. "That's not—" "You promised to stand with me," she continued, tears spilling. "But the moment things got hard, you pulled away, just like everyone else." The words hung between them. Cole's face showed pain as realization dawned. His withdrawal had only deepened her wounds. "I thought I was protecting you by handling this myself," he said softly. "But I was wrong. I need to fix this properly, all of it. Not just the legal mess, but us too. Will you give me that chance?" Lily wrapped her arms around herself, vulnerable but honest. "Just don't shut me out again." Cole nodded, his hand reaching for hers before dropping, back to his side. "I won't, I promise. But first, I need to make things right." Morning light streamed through the bakery windows as Lily straightened her shoulders and checked her appearance one final time. Her hands were steady now, determination replacing fear. She'd spent too long letting others define her worth. Armed with a folder of documentation, she walked purposefully to town hall. The morning air felt crisp and clean, matching her resolve. Inside, she met with Commissioner Thompson, who had known her since childhood. "Lily," he greeted warmly, "what brings you here today?" She placed her folder on his desk. "I need to set the record straight about my bakery and recent events." For the next hour, she walked him through everything: her business practices, community involvement, and the truth behind Patrick's allegations. The commissioner listened intently, occasionally nodding. "You've always been an asset to this town," he said finally, reaching for his letterhead. "Let me write that down officially." Across town, Marta knocked firmly on Ruth's door. When Ruth answered, her usually perfect makeup showed signs of strain. "We need to talk," Marta said simply. Ruth's living room was immaculate as always, but Ruth herself seemed to shrink as she sat. Marta chose her words carefully. "I've watched you hurt that girl for 28 years, Ruth. Each time I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere. That stops today." Ruth's hands twisted in her lap. "You don't understand." "No, you don't understand. Lily is everything you could have hoped for in a daughter. Kind, hardworking, honest. But instead of celebrating her, you've spent years trying to make her smaller, just to make yourself feel bigger." Tears began rolling down Ruth's cheeks, smearing her mascara. "I never meant—" "Of course you meant it," Marta said firmly. "Every criticism, every manipulation, every time you made her feel unworthy. But it's not too late to change." Ruth broke down completely then, shoulders shaking. "I'm so ashamed," she whispered. "Good," Marta replied. "That's where healing starts." Meanwhile, Cole sat in his lawyer's office reviewing documents. They'd gathered evidence of Patrick's questionable business dealings, nothing illegal enough for prosecution, but definitely embarrassing enough to force his hand. When Patrick arrived for their meeting, his usual swagger was missing. Cole stayed seated, calm and controlled. "Let's talk about why you're really doing this," Cole said quietly. Patrick paced nervously. "You don't know anything. I know your father's company is failing. I know you're desperate to prove yourself to him. And I know you're taking out your frustrations on an innocent woman because you're too scared to face the real problems." Patrick's facade cracked. "He never thought I was good enough," he burst out. "Nothing I did ever measured up. And then I saw her, perfect little Lily with her perfect little bakery, and I couldn't stand it." "She's not your enemy," Cole said. "She's fought just as hard as you for acceptance." Patrick sank into a chair, suddenly looking very young and lost. "I screwed up, didn't I?" "Yes, but you can still fix it." Back at home that evening, Cole found Lily at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers and letters of support from customers. She looked up as he entered, exhaustion evident in her face, but also a quiet strength. "The whole town came together," she said softly. "People I barely knew wrote letters defending me." Cole pulled up a chair beside her. "Because they know who you really are." Their hands found each other across the scattered papers. They were both too tired for big conversations, but something had shifted. The distance between them felt smaller, more bridgeable. "Thank you," Lily whispered, "for fighting for me today." "Always," Cole replied simply, and in that moment they both knew they would find their way forward together. Dawn painted the sky in soft pinks as Ruth stood nervously outside Heaven's hearth. Her usual polished appearance seemed muted, her shoulders carrying the weight of long overdue honesty. When Lily arrived to open the bakery, she stopped short at the sight of her mother. "I need to make things right," Ruth said quietly, her voice trembling. Marta appeared behind Ruth, nodding encouragingly to Lily. Inside the bakery's warm interior, Ruth pulled out a carefully typed statement, her hands shaking slightly as she smoothed the paper. "I've written everything down," she explained. "The truth about my past mistakes, how I tried to cover them up, and how I hurt you in the process." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Lily, for everything." Lily watched silently as Ruth signed the statement, making it official. The morning light streamed through the windows, catching the tears on her mother's cheeks. Later that afternoon, the town hall's meeting room filled with familiar faces. Lily sat between Cole and Marta, drawing strength from their presence. Ruth stood at the podium, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "I've lived my life focused on appearances," she began, reading from her statement. "In doing so, I hurt the person who deserved it least, my daughter. I manipulated situations, tried to control outcomes, and caused pain to protect my own reputation." The room remained respectfully quiet as Ruth detailed her actions and their consequences. When she finished, Pastor Wilson stepped forward first, offering words of understanding while establishing clear expectations for changed behavior. Patrick's retraction came next, his written admission of false allegations officially ending any legal threats to the bakery. The community's response was measured, offering forgiveness while maintaining healthy boundaries. As the meeting concluded, several townspeople approached Lily, expressing support and appreciation for her resilience. Cole stood protectively nearby, his quiet presence a comfort. That evening, their home felt particularly peaceful. Cole prepared a simple celebration dinner, grilled steaks and roasted vegetables with fresh bread Lily had brought from the bakery. They ate at the kitchen table, sharing comfortable silence punctuated by soft conversation. "Ready for a ride?" Cole asked after they'd cleaned up. The motorcycle rumbled to life as Lily settled behind Cole, wrapping her arms around his waist. The evening air was cool and fresh as they wound through familiar roads leading to the overlook. Stars were just beginning to appear as Cole parked. They stood together at the railing, watching the sun paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Cole turned to face her, his expression gentle. "I need you to know something," he said softly. "What I feel for you, it's real. It started long before any of this happened, and it's only grown stronger." He took her hand carefully in his. "You never were, and never will be, just an obligation to me." Lily felt tears well up in her eyes as she leaned into his solid warmth. Together they watched the sun sink below the horizon, the day's tensions melting away in the peaceful moment. Morning sunlight streamed through Heaven's Hearth's windows as Lily arranged fresh pastries on tiered displays. The familiar scent of cinnamon and vanilla filled the air, mixing with the excited chatter of gathering townspeople. The bakery door chimed steadily as folks arrived, club members in their leather vests mingling easily with church ladies in floral prints. Marta moved through the crowd, making sure everyone had coffee and treats. Even Ruth stood quietly near the wall, wearing a simple dress instead of her usual fancy clothes. Cole helped set out the last of the plates, his hand brushing Lily's back gently as he passed. The gesture gave her courage as she cleared her throat to speak. "Thank you all for coming," Lily began, her voice soft but steady. "This past month has taught me so much about unexpected blessings." She glanced at Cole, who smiled encouragingly. "Sometimes the path we think we should take isn't the one that leads us home. I've learned that forgiveness isn't just about letting go. It's about making room for new growth." She paused, looking around at the familiar faces. Danny from the club winked at her while Pastor Wilson nodded approvingly. "This community has shown me what chosen family truly means," Lily continued. "You've helped me find my voice and my strength. And in doing so, you've helped me find real love. Not the kind that's arranged or forced, but the kind that grows naturally, like bread rising in the warmth." Ruth dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, while Marta beamed proudly. As the gathering continued, Cole slipped outside briefly. He returned carrying something large wrapped in brown paper. "I have something for you," he said, positioning it carefully against the wall. Lily unwrapped it to find a hand-painted wooden sign. The artwork showed delicate flowers and warm colors surrounding the bakery's name. But Cole had added something new. Small motorcycles worked into the design, barely noticeable unless you looked closely, representing their merged lives. "It's beautiful," Lily whispered, touching the paint gently. The gathering stretched into early afternoon, filled with laughter and shared stories. When the last guests left, including Ruth, who hugged Lily awkwardly but sincerely, Cole helped clean up. "Ready for a ride?" he asked once they'd finished. The late afternoon sun was warm as they cruised through familiar streets. Cole took a turn Lily recognized, heading toward the old park where she used to sit as a teenager, dreaming of escape while writing in her journal. They parked near the wooden bench overlooking the valley. Everything looked different now, smaller, less threatening. Or maybe she was the one who had changed. Cole stood close, his presence steady and warm. "I've wanted you for a long time," he said softly, echoing words that had once surprised her at the courthouse. Lily looked up at him, seeing past the tattoos and leather to the gentle heart she'd come to know. "And now I choose you freely," she replied, her voice clear and certain. The sun was setting as they rode back into town. They walked the last block hand in hand, their steps unhurried. The bakery's windows glowed warmly in the dusk, looking like home. Through the glass, Lily could see Cole's new sign hanging proudly, a symbol of their shared future, built on trust and chosen love.